Hey, my name is Delano, and this is the next video in my Recovering from Psychiatry video series. You can find me at www.recoveringfrompsychiatry.com. You can find me on Twitter at Delano, and you can find me on Facebook at Recovering from Psychiatry. I wanted to talk today about suicide and about suicidal feelings and about the meaning of life and death, and I wanted to share a bit about my personal relationship to the topic. I've been thinking about this a lot the last week. Someone close to me has passed away, and whether it's human nature or my own personality, I've been spending a lot of time reflecting on this and trying to make meaning of what this all means. And I've been thinking a lot about my own relationship to life and death. And I'm feeling really emotional today because, first and foremost, I just feel so much gratitude that I'm here after spending a really long time not wanting to be here. I'm feeling a lot of sadness for this person who's no longer with us. And I'm just feeling overwhelmed by a lot of emotions that I'm still getting used to feeling. I'm only 3.5 years free from psychiatry and from heavy psychiatric drugs, so I still get overwhelmed with emotions pretty regularly because it still feels so new to me. But this video today is really for those of you out there who have a personal relationship to suicide, to suicidal feelings, to suicidal urges, to suicidal thoughts. To those of you who aren't sure that life is worth living, I can totally relate, and that's been a really big part of my story. I've been spending a lot of time this past week on the same hospital unit that I was brought to by helicopter after I tried to kill myself in 2008. I don't remember my time on the unit there at all. I was in a coma, but I do remember waking up, and I remember the tubes being pulled out of my throat. I remember the bright white light above my bed. I remember the voices of my parents and of unfamiliar people. And I remember more than anything just that pain in my heart as I realized that I was still alive and that I'd failed. It feels so close and so far away because today my life is so incredibly different than what it was back then, but it still feels so familiar. I remember so vividly what it felt like to have not a shred of hope in my life, to have not a shred of connection to anything in my life. I remember so vividly what it felt like to just yearn for death, which to me was the only opportunity I'd have for peace. And I just feel that a lot right now. If you're out there and you're not sure that life is worth living for you, I think if I was to suggest anything, it would be first and foremost to listen to that. This idea, I've really learned a lot from by reading a man named David Webb, by reading a book he wrote called Thinking About Suicide, which I really encourage any and all people out there to read. But I think, I spent 9 years thinking about death every day, and in that time period I spent many, many years seriously considering my death. And I think the one opportunity that I never had in that whole time was the opportunity to listen to what that meant. Why did I want to die? What did that mean to me? What had, what in my life was leading me to want to end it? I spent so much time trying to get rid of my suicidal feelings, in countless hours of therapy, in countless pill bottles, admitting myself to psych wards to keep me safe from myself. I spent years trying to, just to eradicate my urge to die. and all it did was bring me closer to my death. If you're out there and you're thinking about death, I think the first most important step is to listen to that and to explore it and to not be afraid of it. I think fear of oneself is perhaps the most powerful fear, and I'm only newly discovering that my thoughts and my emotions are nothing to be afraid of. I spent a long time being told, Laura, you can't trust yourself, you can't trust your thoughts, you can't trust your emotions, you are mentally ill. If you listen to yourself, you're inevitably going to kill yourself. So I grew to fear myself and to fear my capacity for self-destruction. And let me tell you, I was quite self-destructive for a long period of time. So it seemed to be a valid fear to have. But what I see now is what a vicious cycle that whole thought process was, because the more I grew to fear myself, the more I grew the more I surrendered agency, basically, over my emotions, convinced that this disease that I supposedly had, that psychiatrists told me I had, was taking me over. And so the more I surrendered my agency to this so-called disease, the more self-destructive my life became, because what was the point in trying to take care of myself or to create a life worth living when I was at the mercy of my bipolar disorder? So I think for me, the first most important step was realizing that I was nothing to be afraid of. And, that stands in contrast to what a lot of the mental health system tells us. If you're out there and you have a psychiatric diagnosis and you see professionals regularly, likely they've told you, if you're thinking about death, you need to call us immediately, or you need to go to your local emergency room. You need to admit yourself to a psych ward because you need other people to take care of you and you can't do it on your own. And I'm by no means saying that we should all be out there on our own trying to, to rough it in isolation, because I think as human beings we need community and we need connection. But I think a really important step for me was realizing that there's no one out there who has the answers to my life and to my pain. There's no one. Doesn't matter how many years they spent in school, how many degrees they have after their name. There's no one out there who knows me better than I know myself, which was a hard thing to realize, because for so long I was sure that I had no idea who I was. I looked in the mirror and I saw a stranger looking back. So if you're out there and you're thinking about death, I encourage you to walk through the fear of yourself and to listen to that. You're not broken. This isn't some brain disease implanting thoughts of suicide in your mind. I truly believe that the urge to die is a really meaningful experience that's rooted in life experiences. And I think for so many people, I know for me, I yearned to die only after I began to think of myself as broken and as less than human and as abnormal. And the more I isolated myself and the more I came to believe that I could never fit into the human race because of my so-called illness, the more desperate I became. So I think it also begins with realizing that you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with your brain. You're not different. You're not a lost cause. You're not, at the mercy of some disease in your brain. You're a human being suffering, yearning for meaning, yearning for joy, yearning for peace, whatever it is. And that's an incredibly valid and important search that I think almost all human beings go through at some point. What's the purpose of my life? Why am I here? What does this all mean? When I came to think about my urge to die as really an urge to live just in an entirely different way, that freed me up to stay present with what I was thinking and feeling, because it meant, in truth, that I wanted change. And there's nothing more ultimate of a change than death. And I think once I realized that was really, at the heart of my urge to die, I began to explore living. And it was so hard, especially in the beginning, because I had no idea how to be human. Over 10 years in the mental health system had reduced me to this mental patient who didn't know how to sit with herself, who didn't trust herself, who was completely surrendered to, mental health professional after mental health professional, who carried a DOP kit of 10 pill bottles with her wherever she went, like they were her security blankets. That was me only 4 years ago. And today I'm in such a different place. And if you're out there and you just don't see a chance for yourself, you don't see a glimmer of hope, that's okay. I remember what that felt like. This past week, spending all this time in this ICU, I've just realized how beautiful it is to be human, and just the potential to transform, just how unbelievably powerful it is. And it starts with believing it's possible. And back then, when I was in that bed, just in so much pain at the discovery that I was still alive, I hadn't yet connected with my human spirit and with my human potential to change. I had just given up on myself. And I think also, speaking for myself, as long as I was on medications which numbed me and disconnected me from myself, from my sexuality, from my ability to feel love, as long as I was thinking about myself as mentally ill and as different, I stood no chance at grasping a meaningful life. I had to liberate myself from my psychiatrization. I had to awaken from that mentally ill identity, and that's been hard work. But in doing so, it's reconnected me to my humanness, and I think every human being out there has the potential for transformation and to be human. If you're out there and you're feeling like you're too far gone, I know you're not. I may never know you, but I know that you have everything you need inside of you to find a meaningful life. So I guess I woke up this morning feeling compelled to speak about this because of how much gratitude I have for my life's journey. All of those years of darkness and of pain and of loneliness and of hopelessness, none of them were in vain, because they allowed me to get to the point where I'm at today, which is, one, still full of pain. I still struggle. I still get overwhelmed and confused by what life is and how I'm meant to be a part of it. But today my life is full of so much beauty, even when it's painful. And I'm so connected to my humanness, to the fact that I am a part of the human race. I'm a part of this earth, a part of this life force that I was so disconnected from when I was medicated and so-called bipolar. And man, gratitude is such a beautiful thing. I remember for so many years my dad used to say, Laura, if you can just find anything, just one tiny little thing that brings you positivity or happiness, just grab onto that. And I'd get so mad at him because I was utterly incapable of feeling anything happy or joyful for so long. And I know now it was largely because of how deep I'd gone into the mental health system, but I see where he was coming from today, and I think today, because I'm no longer afraid of myself like I used to be, and because I'm no longer afraid of pain, and I've realized that life is about pain. Life is not, the purpose of life is not the absence of suffering. It's to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, even all the suffering, and to see it as something meaningful. Now that I see all of that, I'm able to have peace and joy even in the midst of the storms. And there's a storm right now. It's just life. I'm so sad today. I'm so confused. I'm so aware of how fragile life is, but I'm also so aware of gratitude and beauty. So if you're out there and you're yearning to die, I feel you and I'm listening to you, and I encourage you to listen to yourself and to surround yourself with people who aren't going to label you mentally ill and tell you there's something wrong with you because you don't want to be here anymore. I encourage you to surround yourself with people who accept you and who will listen to you and who will unconditionally be present with you. And if you don't have access to those kinds of people, start with finding us on the internet. There are amazing communities online of people who've been in our shoes, because you're not alone. And man, when I realized just three and a half years ago that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't the only person in the world who felt the way I felt, it was like 1,000,000 pounds were lifted off my shoulders. So come find me at recoveringfrompsychiatry.com, or on Facebook or on Twitter, and know that if you're out there and you're yearning to die, there's meaning in that experience. And no matter how hopeless you feel, if you just hang in there and stay present with what you're feeling, and you see it perhaps as really an urge to live in a very different way, that's taking the first step on this journey of life that is so painful and confusing and scary, but also so beautiful if you just hang in there and believe it's possible. So I send you love and liberation and gratitude. Thanks.